your weekend home for sports news, video game reviews, and hot takes with your hosts, Brandon, Zach, and Justin. Enjoy the show.
What is up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Nest Podcast. This is episode 110. I'm your host, Brandon, and Zach is here with me. Justin will be joining us shortly. What's going on, Zach? How's your week?
Good. How you doing?
Pretty good, man. We got football back in our lives. That's something that we can all appreciate, love, and definitely be excited about. But it's been a pretty monumental week for us as a country as well, because, you know, we just celebrated or remembered, I guess, Patriot Day, September 11th, the day that changed the whole landscape of the country as we knew it. And a lot of change has been happening in the NFL and the MLB and all kinds of stuff. But just this weekend, I was thinking a lot about 9/11 and remembering what that actually meant. And more specifically, I was remembering what the world looked like on September 12th, 2011. And it was a time whenever there was a good unity in our country. Everybody seemed to be on the same side, so to say. And sports were used kind of as that benchmark of getting back to normalcy. It was used as a chance for everybody to come together and cheer for your favorite baseball team, to cheer for your favorite football team. President George Bush came and threw out the first pitch after 9/11, and it was a unifying moment for our country as a whole. And now I look at the landscape of what's going on in the NFL, and it seems like sports are being more divisive than they are unifying. And that's sad to me.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was really shown on Thursday's game with the Chiefs and Texans. If you didn't watch the game, they came out before the game started. I believe it was after the coin toss, or it might have been before. But basically, all of the players came out to the middle of the field and interlocked arms and just kind of stood there, and they had a moment of silence. And the crowd went on to boo, which I thought was pretty ridiculous. No one was doing anything disrespectful. I mean, it was just purely a show of unity, and just something that I thought was very much needed, with all the whole kneeling versus not kneeling and all that kind of stuff. I thought that the unity thing that they did during the Chiefs game was really, really well done. But for the fans to boo that was pretty terrible.
Yeah, and you know, you hit the nail on the head, Zach. It was meant to be a unifying thing, but it wasn't anything that they were trying to make it to where people would have a reason to say that it's disrespectful. It wasn't during the national anthem, which of course we did see some people kneel and some people choose to stay in the locker room or whatever, but that shouldn't be a big deal in my opinion. They intentionally chose to do it after all of that was over with, so that it would be just a show of unity among the players. But like you said, it still received a chorus of boos.
Yeah, I didn't understand that at all. Yeah, I don't know. I guess some people just don't want any of that in their sports. You know, a lot of people say that online, that they don't want any of this politics in sports. But I mean, these guys are using their platform to further something that they believe in. And I mean, I guess if you don't like it, there's plenty of other stuff on TV. But I would have to think that if the regular old Joe that watches football had some sort of cause that he was very proud to be able to represent on a nationwide screen like that, they would. And that's what these guys are doing.
Yeah, I agree, man. And it is what it is, but the football was great.
Yeah, it was. It was a great game.
And, you know, one thing that you asked last week, Zach, was if we thought that we would see dealing and stuff like that. And Justin and I, which, by the way, welcome to the show, Justin. Justin and I last week both said, yeah, they're going to kneel, but you're not going to see it because they don't typically show the national anthem and stuff like that on TV. Well, that's another big change that the NFL made this year is they're actually showing the national anthem. They're not backing away from it, which I was actually surprised to see. But for those people that are boycotting because it's not in their political interest or whatever, it's made it more patriotic because now they're pumping out the national anthem on the national TV broadcasts. So I think it's a win for both sides, in my opinion.
Yep, for sure.
What did you think of the whole unity display, Justin?
I mean, if you're gonna do it, I'd prefer them do it that way than do it when the national anthem's playing. Like you said, the ones that wanted to kneel, for the most part, went to the locker room, which is respectful, and then the rest stayed out and stood on the field, and then they showed the unity after. I mean, I would prefer none of it. I prefer just football, but if I've got to, I love football, and I'm not going to quit watching it because of that. And like I said, the way they did it, I would much rather have it that way than the way they did it in the past. So,
yeah, I think it's a smart way of doing it. I think they realize that they're not necessarily getting their message out to the people that need to hear it. I think the people that are kind of not in the know per se about the issues affecting the Black community didn't take their message as they thought they would. And I think this might be a way to kind of get those people to listen to them. Clearly those fans that, decided to boycott and stuff like that, you won't ever really reach those people, but that's their own fault. I think the people that are, like Justin, real big football fans that will still watch. If you didn't necessarily agree with the kneeling, maybe this is something that will kind of open your mind up to this issue and won't rub you the wrong way as bad.
Right. And, just to drive that point home that Justin made, this is a much better way than doing it when it's during the middle of the national anthem or whatever. This is a way to show, hey, we're all in this together. That's kind of the slogan that they've adopted, and to line up in the middle of the field. It just sucks that it happened to be at the one stadium that had fans and that one group of fans booed.
Yeah. Yeah, that was shitty.
True.
But, that's another thing that we got to talk about is the fact that there have been no fans at these games. All these games that took place on Sunday, with the exception of the Jags game and the Kansas City Chiefs game, had no fans.
Yep.
But we still had the crowd volume and crowd noise pumped in. Allegedly, they're saying that it's taken from previous broadcast. NFL Films did a bunch of editing and all that stuff. So if your team succeeds on a 3rd and 1, they took an audio clip from a previous 3rd and 1 that your team successfully made, pumped in that crowd noise and stuff like that. What did you guys think of all the fake crowd noise whenever you could just look around and see that it was empty?
Go ahead, Justin.
Well, when I was watching the game, I wasn't really paying attention to the stands. Like, I felt as if fans were there, even though they weren't. Like I said, the stands wasn't what I was paying attention to. So I actually think that crowd noise kind of made it a legitimate football game.
Sure.
What I didn't like is, and I can just go from Atlanta, they had nobody. They had no cutouts or nothing. I like that way better than the ones that had the cutouts behind the field goals. I thought that was real corny and cheesy, and I didn't care for that.
The field goals was where I noticed it the most, because they would show that, the goalposts or whatever, and then you would just see nothing there, or the cardboard cutouts there. That was the time that I noticed the most, like, oh shit, there's nobody really there. But you're right, Justin. Normally you could hear like a crowd reaction when your team got a first down or whatever, and it was pretty cool to see. So
they even booed, which I thought was cool.
Yeah, the umps would make a call or whatever. I saw one in the Pats game where the challenge got overturned and the crowd booed, just like they would in real life.
It works better in football, other than the field goals, than it does in baseball, because in baseball you can always see the stands.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
so you're continuously but in football they keep it on the field. So if you're hearing that there's chants and stuff, and you don't know if there's fans there or not, I mean, it works out.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think the noise was perfect. And I was not paying attention to whether or not there was fans. I think the NFL does a good job of just basically focusing on the field, and they have all those great camera angles. So I think it worked out fine.
The only one that they really can't take advantage of that is for field goals, but I'm cool with it anyway. Let's get into some of the action. You know, Zach, you already mentioned the Thursday night game between the Texans and Chiefs, where the Chiefs showed up and the Texans absolutely did not. But the big breakout performance from that kind of stole the show was Clyde Edwards-Helaire. That dude went off, just like I said. He had 25 touches and over 100 yards rushing. He ended up with 138, just like I said. Oh, and he had a touchdown to boot. So that guy was my lock last week, and he delivered 100%. That's going to be an offense that is going to be very hard to contain this year because they have weapons everywhere.
Absolutely.
How do you stop an offense like that?
You use that bend don't break mentality. You got to find a way to give them a little here and give them a little there, and and you just got to make the stop when you need to. That's the same thing with all those high-powered offenses. I mean, you got to use that bend don't break mentality, and NFL's becoming that. It used to not be a passing league, but over the last 3 or 4 years, nowadays there's talent all over the field. You can't stack the box. You can't do the things you used to do. So that's up with the defense, man. The defensive coordinators have to do better film work and figure out how to stop those guys.
Well, and a lot of it is because of these mobile dual threat quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
They have to respect the run game so much that it's opened up the passing lanes downfield for these elite wide receivers. You know, your guys like Tyreek Hill, Hopkins, Julio Jones, Michael Thomas. You know, there's a ton of elite wide receivers all throughout the league, and they benefit from having those dual threat quarterbacks and a solid run attack on the offense. So it's kind of going both ways. But you're right. You know, I saw a meme earlier today that declared Drew Brees essentially the records king because he has all of the passing records pretty much under the sun. And I mean, he's been sitting there throwing to quality receivers, standing in his pocket, throwing for years and years and years. So he's just accumulated it. But if he were coming up as a rookie today, he would just be kind of like run-of-the-mill guy because he's not the dual threat capabilities. He's great. He's a legend. He'll retire as one of the best all time. But if he was a rookie today, somebody like a Joe Burrow, he would have to have a different facet of his game to really wow people.
Yeah.
I want to speak when we get to Joe Burrow. I want to take that.
Okay, we'll take it.
I'm going to talk about Joe Burrow. He didn't throw for 500 yards like Aaron Rodgers or Breeze and those guys did this week. What he did do, he kept his team in the game the whole time. He was composed. And when there was less than like a minute and a half on the clock, this kid made some of the toughest throws I've ever seen in football.
Yeah.
He got him down to literally the 3-yard line, and then a stupid push off by a veteran receiver in AJ Green put him back, and then the kicker, literally I saw his leg almost fall off as he kicked the ball and shanked the kick. So I don't put any of that on Burrow. Burrow did exactly what you could ask for in a quarterback, and I was just shocked how his first start ever, how composed that kid was. It was, like I said, he only threw for like 150 yards or 160 yards, but he rushed for a touchdown, and he just looked great. I'd love to have him as my quarterback if that's any indication.
Yeah, he did very well. And if you remember his rushing touchdown, it was magical. I mean, he let his blocker lead, and he took the route that was, more advantageous for him. And he just, all of those things that really take time to kind of develop the knowledge to do. He was doing that on his first game. And this is a kid who hasn't played football since March.
Mm-hmm.
And they definitely didn't have any preseason. They had their training camps or whatever. But for him to do what he did for his first game out was spectacular. I don't think you could have asked him to do anything else, really.
I think the word that you were looking for, Zach, was patient. He was patient with his run, and he was patient waiting for the receivers to make their breaks and to find guys that were open downfield. And that's all you can ask for out of a quarterback, much less a rookie quarterback. He showed a certain level of poise that veterans in the league sometimes don't have.
Mhm.
And, we were watching a little bit before we went on live, Zach, that they showed the commercial on Monday Night Football for next week's Thursday Night Football between the Browns and the Bengals. And I've got to think that after what we saw from the Browns defense this week, that the Bengals are going to cut them up. And I look for AJ Green and Tyler Boyd to both have big games.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. That's Cincinnati's game to lose for sure.
You know what was weird about this week? Coming into the season, we talked about Drew Brees being old and Aaron Rodgers being downhill. I think I got Aaron Rodgers in like the 13th round, which is ungodly in fantasy football. And all the old quarterbacks that we thought were going downhill threw for like 400 plus yards and 4 or 5 touchdowns. I mean, it just blew my mind. I was like, dang, all these people that I thought were, going to take a hit this year just balled out in week 1.
Well, you can't say all the old quarterbacks performed well, because there's a certain one that had a lot of hype coming into the season that didn't perform very well in week 1.
I told you that, though.
Of course, yeah, we all said that last week.
Mhm.
Of course, we're talking about Tom Brady and the Buccaneers. They went into the Superdome there in New Orleans and made the New Orleans Saints defense look like they were a top tier defense in the league. I don't know. What did you guys think of old Tom Brady in his debut performance in Tampa Bay?
I think when he got that quarterback sneak touchdown, I was kind of like, okay, this dude's fired up. He wants to win still.
His first drive.
Yeah, that was good. And then the wheels started to kind of fall off. I remember he threw a pick, and then it just kind of almost unraveled from there. He definitely doesn't have the same things that he used to have in New England. He doesn't have a very good O-line. I think you can see that. I think he's used to just having all the time in the world back there in the pocket, and that's not the case with this team. I don't know. I think it's going to be hard for him to be successful. It was not a good first showing, and I get it. It's a new team, this, that, and the other. But man, if you're a veteran like he is and supposed to be greatest of all time and all that stuff, you would have to think that he would be able to succeed pretty much anywhere, but it doesn't look like that.
It's the Buccaneers. Just like when Philadelphia had their dream team, they still went to Philly. It's still the same offense, same defense. He didn't have that. He's got more weapons now than he had last year in New England. But he had a whole different scheme.
There's no argument. They definitely have more weapons now than he had in New England.
That's why I keep telling you guys, whenever all this started, I said, this reminds me of the 2006 Eagles. This is the so-called dream team that's not going to come out to nothing. They'll still be dead last in the NFC South. Because even though we had 3 teams losing the NFC South, the only team that won was the Saints. Carolina looked pretty good. Atlanta secondary is garbage, but we still had 6 sacks. We had 2 receivers go for over 150 yards. I mean, we were still hitting on offense. Tampa Bay looks like the bottom of the barrel again. It's just, and I knew that. I mean, and what sucks for Tom Brady is if it keeps going this way, it's going to end up being that he was only good because of Bill Belichick's offense.
Yeah, that's what I was. I think I was telling either you guys or maybe just Brandon, but I was saying that this is only hurting his legacy. Yeah. Every doubter, every hater of Tom Brady is going to use this and say, "Look, without Bill Belichick, he is shit." And it's hard to say whether that's true or not because it's so late in his career. But I mean, he's definitely not helping his case here. I think it was. I don't know why he decided to leave instead of just retire. I mean, we've said it before. What more can you possibly want than 6 Super Bowls in 8 appearances? He's had an amazing career, but yet he's still just, I don't know what it is. I guess he still's competitive, but man, it's not looking good. And I think instead of going out for an old beat up retired Gronk, which he's not even that old, but he is beat up. and going for Leonard Fournette. I think they probably should have tried to get better offensive linemen. I mean, there's huge holes in that offense, and it's not their offensive weapons. They've got plenty of those, but somehow they're still not doing well. So I don't know what it is, but it's a combination of a couple things, I think. And I think the first thing is that offensive line.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you, Zach, that is the one major area of weakness that we saw from the Bucs offense was their offensive line. And we were talking about it during the game that Brady at 43 years of age isn't going to be able to take repeated hits over and over and over. You know, I'm sure after the game he was looking to see if he had to play the Washington football team because they recorded 8 sacks on Sunday and he doesn't even want to come close to playing them. But, you know, like you said, Zach, during their first drive, I thought, wow, okay, they might be ready to roll. But then the next 5 possessions, a punt, an interception, a blocked field goal, another punt, and then a pick 6. So after that one, it kind of sputtered out for a while. And with that pick 6, you know, talking about how they've been, I can't read what that says.
It says wallow and it has a middle finger.
So with that pick 6, you know, I told you guys last year when he was still playing in New England that he was going downhill and that it was starting to unravel for Tommy football. With that pick 6 in the debut with the Bucs, that made 3 consecutive games that he's thrown a pick 6. That puts him in company with Matt Schaub and Blaine Gabbert from 2013 as the last quarterbacks to throw 3 pick 6s in a row.
That's a squad, son.
Yeah. What Matt Schaub's the backup quarterback in Atlanta.
Yeah, he's a heck of a backup.
And Blaine Gabbert's out of the NFL. So that's the company that Tom Brady is in right now with those type of guys. He's throwing up those kind of stats. Is Tom Brady washed up?
Man, if he's not, he's going that way. Does it remind you of Brett Favre when he went to the Jets and it was just a dumpster fire? It's kind of reminding me of that.
And Joe Montana when he played for the Chiefs, like it's not anything that anybody wants to see.
No.
Yeah. But you know, we've had some commenters talking about your Falcons there, Justin, and we can't talk about the Falcons without talking about the Seahawks because they were dominant.
But you know, I'm not even upset, man, because like I said, we had push. We got to him a lot of the game. We had 6 sacks. I don't think we had but maybe 9 all last year. Right. So we almost got that in week 1. Our offense, of course, Matt Ryan went like on a streak of 14 straight completions or something crazy. They had multiple receivers and 150 plus yard game. Todd Gurley was averaging like 7 yards a carry. Like, and then you got our secondary. Our secondary got ate up. If we could find a way to get an extra piece or 2 in our secondary, Atlanta's going to be fine. But until we do, we're going to have to outscore everybody, and it just didn't happen against that Seattle defense.
They got ate up to the tune of 31 on 35 passes for 4 touchdowns.
It's a secondary. They've been garbage the last 3 years.
And you got to remember that the secondary, the Atlanta secondary, was going up against Russell Wilson and the Seahawks offense. I mean, they're not scrubs. They are a very good offense. So it's not like they were going up against a shitty team. That was a very hard offense to stop.
Think about it. We still scored 34 points against them or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you guys will definitely make a run for it in the NFC South. Overall in the NFL, I think it might be rough. But I wouldn't be too concerned about a loss to the Seahawks. They're a very good team.
It is. And where's Wallow live? Does he live in Johnson?
Jacksonville. He's a Jags fan.
Come to my boxing gym, buddy. I'll show you hospitality.
All Wallow can do to you is choke you out.
Wallow's a purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, so if he gets you on the ground, you're twisted up like a pretzel before you even
hit him on the nose, and he won't know what to do.
That's why I said boxing gym, not MMA. No, but all honesty, I wasn't upset with the performance. I mean, I watched every play, and it's just we can't help. It's just their secondary. We had them like 3rd and 23 and 3rd and 19 and 3rd and like 30 or something like that. And each time we got 2 pass interference calls, and once we let them run a little screen pass for like 40 yards. So we had them where we wanted them. We just couldn't stop them. So.
Well, and speaking of pass interference, next week you guys go to Dallas to play the Cowboys, but they had an offensive pass interference called on them that pretty much sealed the game for the Rams on Sunday Night Football last night. What did you guys think of that play? I'm sure you've seen the highlights by now and saw, the deep ball that Dak threw, that there was a little bit of pushing and shoving, but Jalen Ramsey kind of sold it with the LeBron James flop there at the end. So what did you guys think? Was that a legit call, or should have that had gone for the 40-yard completion that it was?
Go ahead.
I can tell you that it's because of who it was against. When you go up against a guy like Jalen Ramsey or one of the top corners or safeties in the league, just like LeBron, they're going to get that call more often than not. You can't control how the game's called. So, it is what it is. Look at the Saints over 2 years. They got screwed twice by the refs.
Yep.
When it's all said and done, until they fix it, until they make it to where you can overturn that kind of call, it was just a person. If it wasn't Jalen, they probably wouldn't have got that call.
And last year, pass interference was reviewable. This year, it's not. So that's another big change that the NFL is putting in. These times are changing, boys.
Why
I don't know.
In the world did they do that?
Why did they test it out for a year and then
it's weird? It's weird because last year they didn't even use it. I remember us saying that. Like, why aren't they using this? There's so many of these non-calls. Where is this test thing that they're trying out? And they didn't even use it. And I guess they just got rid of it. It's so weird. I think the NFL has a problem with implementing new things. For some reason, they seem like they're kind of stuck in their ways. Like a lot of this pass interference stuff, I think, can be at least helped by exploring the idea of some sort of robotic penalty caller, something like that. Just kind of see what that can bring, because if that can help, I'm not saying that you just have to have a robot out there calling all of the penalties, but if you can have something that can analyze how players come in contact with each other and whether or not that's a penalty, why not? I mean, imagine how hard it would be as a referee to make a judgment call, and it's up to you whether or not it's a penalty or not, and then they'll go take a look at it. If you have no call, there's nothing they can do. I just don't understand that.
I think the reason it didn't work last year is because the coaches couldn't challenge. It had to come from the booth. And a team could run that hurry up offense so fast that none of those calls ever made it to the field in time to actually get reviewed. Because if you're a coach and you think it's close, you're going to run out there and, run a quick out route or whatever. And they should have made it to where it could be challenged by the coaches, and so they didn't really give it a good shot. I mean, I like how everything's looked at in New York now, but it takes time to get that stuff looked at.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So now, Justin, you asked earlier where Wallow was from, and he is from Duval, and the Jacksonville Jags are from Duval, and they beat the Indianapolis Colts. How bad is Phillip Rivers to lose to the team that's trying to lose?
Crazy.
It just shows how bad the Colts are right now too. So,
and that they're talked about being one of the front runners in the AFC. Like, oh, everybody's already putting them in the AFC Championship game. Blah 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 blah. Man, they've got some work to do if that's the case, because Gardner Minshew came out there and was cutting up that secondary. He made DJ Chark look like he was a Pro Bowl wide receiver. Minshew himself was running all over the place with those wonderful locks flowing in the wind. Minshew mania is back here in Jacksonville. What are you going to do?
Yeah. That's not a good look for Indianapolis and for Phillip Rivers. I don't know. I'm sure that there's hardly any weapons in Indiana for Phillip Rivers to use. I don't see that team being very well. I mean, Andrew Luck struggled with them for years, and for whatever reason, they just never really gave him much to work with. I don't know.
They still got T.Y. Hilton. He's like 50 though.
Yeah.
He's just like Burrow's AJ Green. He's just an old receiver that's been there for years and years and years.
Yep.
But I mean, that was probably one of the biggest shocks of all of Sunday, was seeing the Jags pull out the win. So if you're keeping score at home, Phillip Rivers, quarterback on a new team, lost his first game. Tom Brady, a quarterback on a new team, lost his first game. There is one significant quarterback that went to a new team and won with his new team for the first time. Of course, I'm talking about Cam Newton and the Patriots. I hate to say I told you so, but I told you so. 15 rushing attempts for Cam Newton. He set a Patriots franchise record for rushing yards. He had 2 rushing touchdowns, and he threw for 0 interceptions. That's exactly what I said their offense would look like months ago. That's exactly what I said they would have if they drafted Jalen Hurts, which we'll get to him and how he needs to be playing in Philly. But that's exactly what I said this offense was going to look like. It's a very heavy run, pass, option offense. Josh McDaniels is loving it. You could see him on the sidelines smiling from ear to ear every time he got to call a play for Cam Newton. And guess what? They're only going to get better. He's only been part of this team for a month and a half. As he learns the playbook more and gets a better understanding of everything going on, they're just going to get more dynamic. The Patriots are back.
They didn't skip a beat, man. It's kind of crazy to see that team go from one of the best pocket passers to ever do it to an option. They did option plays. They did just, I mean, Cam ran around. It's crazy. It's hilarious that he beat the Patriots franchise record for rushing in his first freaking attempt. Like, that wasn't very hard.
No, he had 75 rushing yards on the day, and it was a new franchise record.
Yeah.
Crazy.
You know, the most Tom Brady ever had in a game was 31. And that was all a big chunk play that he just got left alone and was able to just run down the sidelines before he finally stepped out of bounds.
Yeah.
I remember that game.
Yeah, but I mean, go ahead.
That just makes Tom Brady look even worse. It's showing that Cam Newton can come in and be productive in that offense. It just makes it even worse for Tom Brady.
Well, and all the people that are out there saying that, oh, that's the Patriots system is why that you know, Tom Brady's been successful and why Cam Newton has been able to be plugged in and be successful and why Matt Castle was successful. This proves that it's not just the same system, because Cam Newton's not the same quarterback. Like Zach said, they're running option plays. They're running all these different running attacks that nobody has ever seen from the Patriots, but yet it's been successful.
It's the coaching. It ain't the system. It's the system that the coach implements for
That's
whoever
a
he's
bingo.
got.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you hit the nail on the head there too, with Josh McDaniels. It's not just Bill. I mean, obviously Bill is who he is, but I think Josh McDaniels really brings a lot of knowledge to that offense. Like I said, for them to just switch gears from pocket passing, rollout passing, hit the slot receiver every now and then, you know, and just basically just throw the ball all game and maybe hand it off every now and then to keep the defense honest. To go from that to a mobile quarterback, and you've got all these options and stuff like that, just to roll right into that with success was very impressive.
I mean, he just had to dial it back a few years and remember what it was like to coach Tim Tebow, because that's the same formula that they used when Tebow took the Broncos to the playoffs. So I foresee great things happening in New England this year. And then, of course, the defense is going to be good. Zach, you got to benefit from that in fantasy this week from their 3 interceptions. You know, Josh McDaniel may be taking charge of the offense with Cam Newton, but Bill Belichick's always going to have his fingerprints all over that defense. And any Bill Belichick defense, you know, is going to be a solid defensive front, even with all of the opt-outs that they had.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I wasn't necessarily too scared about the opt-outs and the losses that they've had on defense, just because Bill is who he is, and their defense will shine through. And plus, they have a very easy division, so it won't be hard for that division to absolutely beat up on those teams.
The biggest challenge is going to be the Buffalo Bills.
Yep.
Because the Buffalo Bills looked really good, and Josh Allen looked unstoppable in his role as the quarterback there. So that will be the biggest challenge. But, Zach, like you said, it's kind of a cupcake division, and the Patriots played the Dolphins and the Bills played the Jets. So, you see what you got there. But real quick, the Nest podcast is sponsored in part by The Beard Struggle. If you've ever tried to grow a beard, then you know the struggle. We can help you out. The Beard Struggle has tapped into centuries of Viking knowledge to inspire beard growth and overall health. Tap into your inner Viking and check out some of the great beard products available at thebeardstruggle.com. The Ultimate Kit comes with everything that you're going to need to get your facial hair on point. You get day and night elixir oils. You're going to get scruff balm and a full beard balm. You're going to get beard wash and a conditioner. And we're even going to throw in a nylon bristle brush. Use our promo code NEST20 at checkout, and you're going to save an additional 20% on every order at thebeardstruggle.com. And guys, we've been running a promotion for the past couple of weeks to give away that Ultimate Kit that I was just flashing across the screen. And the time has come now to find out who the winner is of that kit. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and give our wheel a nice little spin, and we're going to give this thing away.
Is my name on there? Where am I at?
You are not eligible because you are one of the hosts of this show. Our winner is Chase Slagle.
No.
Chase Slagle. So this box will be shipped out to California, I believe is where he's at. So good deal.
My buddy missed it by one.
Let's see, Roger is your buddy. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, later in the show, we're going to probably spin it again and give away a couple Nest podcast t-shirts. So he's still got a chance to win something, but Chase is the winner of the Beard Struggle kit. So congratulations, Chase.
Nice. Do we know if Chase has a substantial beard?
He does have a beard. He is an actual bearded gentleman. So
my man.
Congratulations, Chase. You'll love it.
Yeah. Heck yeah. It's great stuff.
So let's see. Let's talk about that Washington football team now.
the Washington. I'd hate to lose to them, and the Eagles look terrible.
Well, the Eagles started out looking good. They ran the score up to 17-0, and it looked like they were just going to cruise to a victory. Then halftime happened, and I found out today that the Washington football team head coach, Ron Rivera, didn't get to give a normal halftime pep talk. He didn't have the opportunity to actually even interact with his team because he was receiving IV treatments during halftime.
Wow.
Ron Rivera is battling cancer while he's trying to coach this team that's navigating a shitstorm. The meme of the dog sitting in the bar with all the flames around him saying this is fine, that has to be Ron Rivera because he's dealing with so much on every different front. So he wasn't even in the locker room. Dwayne Haskins stepped up and gave the pep talk to the guys there in the locker room, and they came out in the second half and they were a completely different team. Of course, we all know that they ended up winning the game. They scored something like 24 unanswered points to take the lead and go on to win the game. And you know what? I'm sorry, 27 unanswered points to come back and win the game. And I'm for it. I mentioned earlier that the Washington team had 8 sacks in the game. That defense was relentless. And I'm surprised Carson Wentz was even able to walk off the field that game because we all know he's made of glass.
Yeah. What a shock, man. If there's one team that you would bet to lose, it's the Washington football team. I mean, everyone knows that they're dog shit, but here we are, and they won. That's very impressive. I didn't get to see that game. But I wonder if Dwayne Haskins is the majority of their success, or was it something else? Do you guys happen to know?
He looked good. Their running game was strong. They didn't really have not one dude. They kind of had like a little stable of backs, but I mean, the Eagles' defense just crumbled. Like, I don't know what happened. I guess Dwayne Haskins gave that speech. He was like, "Look, we've lost everything. We don't even have a damn name.
Yeah,
We need to go out here and prove that we are somebody."
Yep.
Hey, whatever works, man. I mean, maybe it was just something as simple as like, look, our coach is dying in the next room. The least we could do is go out there and leave it all on the field, whatever it was, it sparked something in them and they came out and they performed. And I was happy to see it. I was happy to see that the team with no name was able to pull out their first win of the season. And they're actually a first place team right now.
That's insane. 2020, man. The Washington football team is on top.
Every time I saw that logo and like the different color, orange, or I'm colorblind, but I could tell it's like a different shade or whatever. But every time I would look at it, it would take me a second. I'd be like, "Who the heck is that?"
Yeah.
Like I have to like remind myself, "Oh, that's the Redskins." Oh,
I like how they went the Alabama route and just put people's numbers on their helmets. It seemed like a very old school uniform, and you could tell it was just something that they kind of just threw together because they had to.
It's like, well, we're either going to put this stupid looking W on there, or we could put everybody's number on there.
Right.
I like it. I thought it looked cool. I'm happy for them, and I hope they continue to keep winning because, like I said, they're a first place team right now. Just like by default, the Saints are the first place in the NFC South because everybody else lost. Is kind of the same thing for them in the NFC. What are they, East? And because the Cowboys lost, the Giants are playing
Eagles
now,
lost.
and the Eagles lost. So
Giants are losing right now, 10-16 at halftime.
So there you go. If they lose, then they're standing alone as the only winner in that entire division, and they again don't even have a name. So
that's what made that Falcons loss feel better. When I saw everybody else lost, and I was like, "Yeah, we're in tie for second. We're good."
While we're on the subject, kind of Dallas, what did you guys think of SoFi Stadium, the new home of the LA Rams? God damn.
Yeah,
God damn, did Stan Kroenke ball out? That was quite the stadium. Very impressive place to play. On the field, I mean, it was a good game. I don't think either team necessarily went harder than the other. I think Dak looked pretty good. And I think the Rams just kind of squeaked out with it. I think the Rams clearly have a better defense, which I think helped. But I think both teams look pretty good.
I mean, the score stayed the same since the second quarter, didn't it? I mean, there wasn't no more scoring in the whole second half.
Oh, really?
Yeah, 17. So it's defensive back and forth. I mean, I like to watch those games, but a lot of people say they hate them, but I like watching those defensive battles.
Right. Same thing in baseball. A lot of people say that they don't like to watch a pitcher, pitch a shutout, but I think that's very, very exciting.
There was a no-hitter last night in baseball for the Cubs.
Yeah. Crazy.
So nobody was watching it because everybody was watching the Dallas LA Rams stalemate.
Yep.
But we've got to talk about one of the other biggest shockers of the entire weekend, and that's the Arizona Cardinals.
Yep.
We talked about how they would probably be a good offense this year, but their defense was going to be kind of questionable. And they had a huge test in week 1 going into San Francisco and playing against the 49ers, which of course last year was one of the top defenses in town. So they went out there and they balled. Kyler Murray clearly has his favorite target in DeAndre Hopkins, talking about 14 receptions on 16 targets. Dude killed it. The Texans lost twice this week.
Absolutely. And DeAndre Hopkins earned his huge contract, at least for today, because it was substantial. And that's one of those things where you'd think that he would just get double teamed and he would never be open, but he managed to do the damn thing. And God damn, is he getting paid a lot of money?
Yeah. I'm cool with it, but yeah, we'll have to keep an eye on them because I think that's going to be a team to watch for years to come because Murray and D-Hop are now linked together for the next 4 or 5 seasons, and they're only going to get better. So, we've talked a lot about the different teams and all that stuff, but let's talk about some of the individual performers in fantasy. Who, just off the top of your head, would you say are the biggest fantasy studs of the weekend?
I got to say Josh Jacobs. I mean, he gave me 30 plus points, rookie on a Raiders team. That's good. That's very good for me. I was appreciative of that.
Yep. Josh Jacobs was the number one running back of the weekend. He had 35.9 points in fantasy, which is huge. The next closest running back to him was Christian McCaffrey, which, surprise, surprise, he had a good week. 28.4 points for Christian. Now, Christian could have had another touchdown because they had the ball 4th and 1 on the goal line and opted to give it to the fullback instead of number 22. What did you think of that play call from the Carolina Panthers, Justin?
Trying to spread the love.
You roll with your guy, you know what I mean?
I agree. 4 plays in a row, I'm giving it to Christian McCaffrey on the goal line because eventually he's going to be able to break through. I guess they were trying to everybody in the stadium, everybody in the world was thinking that Christian McCaffrey was going to get it so that maybe they could surprise you by giving it to the fullback and he could walk his way into the end zone. But looking back on it now, it's like, oh man.
Ask Marshawn Lynch how it works out.
Yeah, great point.
Very good point.
There's a couple guys that stood out to me. One, like I said earlier, Aaron Rodgers. Jesus, man.
Yeah, he did very well.
364 and 4 touchdowns. And then, but my big one is, I can't even say his first name. I got to pull up here. Nyheim Hines. Guy that nobody expected to even do anything. Balled out and got 27.3 fantasy points when Marlon Mack went down.
That was the key there, is when Marlon Mack went down, which of course the Indianapolis Colts saw he fell to injury and he's out for the season. So now Hine is a much better pick going forward. And Jonathan Taylor is going to be a big addition to whoever has him as well. I think Harvey has him in our league and he's going to be able to eat a lot because of that, all because Marlon Mack got injured.
I've got Hines. Woo-woo.
Yep, there you go.
Russell Wilson was the top performing quarterback. You mentioned Aaron Rodgers. He was the second performing quarterback of the weekend.
I wasn't going to say Russell Wilson.
Wilson had 31.76 points in fantasy this week, and he balled out. We talked about it earlier. He had 4 touchdowns, and it was just incredible to watch. But you guys haven't really mentioned the receivers, and that's because I've kind of got the corner on the receiver market in our league. Devontae Adams dropped 41.6 points. He and Rodgers linked up early and often, and he ended up with 2 touchdowns, about 14 receptions, over 100 yards receiving. And Adam Thielen was the 3rd best performing wide receiver of the week, and he dropped 31 points. So now that Diggs is out of Minnesota, Thielen can be the number 1 guy there. And it looks like he's going to have that magical connection with Captain Kirk. Calvin Ridley was the 2nd best receiving.
And then Julio wasn't far behind him. Julio had 9 receptions, 157 yards. He still got 25 points without even getting a touchdown on board.
Yeah, the big thing for Calvin was he was able to get into the end zone. And that's why
he got there twice.
Yep.
Now,
we got to also talk about some of these fantasy duds, because every week you've got your studs and you've got your duds. But the biggest to me came from the New Orleans Saints, Michael Thomas. 3 receptions for 17 yards. He posted a humble 4.7 fantasy points. This is a guy that set all kinds of offensive records last season, and he's used, as pretty much bait this year, or a distraction or whatever in that game. But a lot of guys used him took him with their number 1 pick their first round pick, they took Michael Thomas. And whenever you only get 4.7 points, that's not a good look.
Yeah. Yeah, that's rough, especially for a guy who's making all that money. I think for me, my big bust is Tyreek Hill. He had 5 receptions, 46 yards, and 1 touchdown. I guess there's a lot of weapons on that Chiefs team, which kind of really lessens his chances of getting a big play because there's so many people that Mahomes can go to. But he's their number 1 wide receiver, and he's fast as hell. So you would think he'd at least do a little bit more.
Yeah, like Thomas, he was kind of used as a distraction for the majority of the game to let other guys get off. That's how Kelsey was able to get open so often, and that's how Edwards-Helaire was able to really take advantage of the run game, was because they were always double teaming Cheetah downfield. So,
yeah, and Sammy Watkins did very well too.
I'm gonna go.
Sammy got a lot this week.
I've got 2. I got, Nick Chubb didn't do nothing, but the one that I'm going with is playing right now. He's got 6 carries for 9 yards, and he's questionable to return. James Conner. Dang you, James Conner. It looks like he's going to be out for a while.
Now that's a guy that got hurt last year too. So maybe that's a back that has some legitimate injury concerns and just won't ever be able to stay healthy.
Luckily I've got David Johnson on my bench, so plug him right in there because he looked dang good.
Yeah, James Conner is, I think, eventually just going to be a bust in the NFL. He had that one good rookie season when Le'Veon Bell sat out, and for whatever reason, it just seemed like he hasn't been able to do much of anything. Big Ben was hurt last year, so I think they all just thought that, oh well, James Conner is just going to run us into the end zone, and it just didn't work.
See, I've loved James Conner ever since he played for Pitt, and then he had cancer. I think it's what he had, and I always loved James Conner, man. I hope he pulls through, but I think you're right. I think he's kind of leaning toward the bad end at this point. And is Cody Campbell, is that who won our beard?
No,
that was Chase.
Chase, okay.
Now, another dud that I saw this weekend was Joe Mixon of the Bengals. This is a guy that's a veteran running back. A lot of people were saying, like, okay, Mixon's going to be good for Joe Burrow there. He's a guy that's going to be able to keep it going. He had 19 carries for 69 yards, but only was able to post 6.1 fantasy points because of a very costly fumble.
Mm-hmm.
Had he had a little bit of a better performance, we could be singing a completely different tune about the Bengals right now.
Yep.
And then, of course, you got the beard himself, Ryan Fitzpatrick, that was a bit of a dud this week. 5.44 fantasy points, 109 yards, 0 touchdowns. And we talked about those 3 INTs that he threw to the Pats defense. So not a very good for Ryan Fitzpatrick.
I'm telling you, man, by week 4, if Fitzpatrick keeps this up, Tua is going to start. Absolutely.
I think that's what they're hoping for. That way, if Tua does lay an egg, it doesn't look bad on the franchise because they're like, well, our other quarterbacks suck too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think that's kind of what they're wishing for.
That's smart on them. Let him learn a little bit behind the Harvard educated quarterback, and then, let him go out there and learn a little bit on his own. But Zach, let's talk a little bit about baseball before we wrap up for the night. Albert Pujols tied Willie Mays for 5th all time with 660 home runs. He hit a 2-run blast against the Colorado Rockies on Sunday night, and he just continues to bolster that Hall of Fame resume. My question is, who's going to be the next guy to hit the 600 plateau? Do you have any ideas or guesses?
I wonder if there's anyone that's close right now that could do it. Probably not, right?
Miguel Cabrera right now is the closest, and he's at 482, but he's also 37 years of age. He's on a steady decline. He's not going to do it.
Right.
Edwin Encarnacion and Nelson Cruz are pretty much 416 and 422, but they're 37 and 39 years old. They're not going to do it. Giancarlo Stanton has 311 at age 30. So he's, the right age for it, but he can't play a full season without getting hurt anymore.
Yeah.
So it'd be very unlikely for him to do it. So per Fangraph, the most likely player to be able to do it is Mike Trout, who just hit number 300 and 301 last week. He's only 29 years old. He's on pace to be one of the greatest baseball players of all time, and Fangraphs gives him a 58% chance of hitting 600 in his career.
Yeah. I think I would have to agree with that. I think Trout probably has the best option there. Those other old guys won't be able to do it. Stanton could definitely do it if he could stay healthy. If he could learn how to just quit hurting himself,
especially playing in New York where he could just slap him over that right field fence.
Yeah, he could make it easy. But I think his injuries will hinder him from doing that. So I think Trout's going to be it. And speaking of Trout, man, the Angels just still can't get anything going in terms of a playoff contention type team, and I think it's all because of pitching. They need to funnel money into their pitching.
Well, they dumped so much money into Shohei Ohtani that they thought that he was going to be the answer to a lot of those pitching problems, but he can't stay healthy long enough to be a steady pitcher. So it is what it is. Mentioned the Cubs no-hitter. The pitcher's name was Alec Mills. He threw a no-hitter last night. So a tip of the cap to him. That's always something, big in the world of baseball whenever a guy throws a no-no.
Absolutely. Yeah. Huge deal.
And you shared something with me that I thought was pretty cool. The Tony Hawk gifted Mike Clevenger one of his skateboards for his first win as a member of the San Diego Padres. Thought that was pretty cool. Tony, of course, being from San Diego, is probably a big time Padres fan, and Sunshine looks like the type of guy that grew up playing Tony Hawk Pro Skater.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't think of a more fitting, just coming together of two different worlds of Tony Hawk. Handing that to Mike Clevenger. That was a really cool moment. And it just kind of shows you that the two different worlds can kind of mesh when those kind of things happen, when those two different personalities are kind of the same, just in two different worlds.
Absolutely. Well, guys, do you have anything else you want to add to the show tonight?
I think I'm good.
All right. Let's give away a couple shirts. How about that?
Cool.
I think we'll do 2 spins and we'll give away 2 shirts this week. So if your name comes up, hit me up in a direct message or whatever and give me your address and I'll ship you a t-shirt. Oh, Cody Campbell's getting another Nest t-shirt. Of course, he got one not long ago because I bet him and he followed through on his bet.
Look how close it is to my boy again. He's going to be mad.
I know. He keeps coming up close. Hopefully we get him one here.
Harvey. Both sides.
Harvey Reed gets it. So Cody and Harvey hit me up and I'll make sure that you guys get your shirts.
Look, it's on him again.
Man, I know. That
was right on the border.
Right on the line for him.
Man.
That's funny. I'm going to have to show him this video.
I
do doesn't give away stuff. We do.
No, yeah, definitely not. I do like that the 2 real big fans of the show got t-shirts. That's really fun because Harvey's been riding with us since probably day one.
Yeah.
And Cody has been a real big fan that has been in the comments basically every episode. So congratulations guys on getting those shirts.
Yep. So hit me up and I'll get those sent out to you this week. And other than that, I don't got shit else to talk about, fellas. We'll see you next Monday night here on the Nest podcast, and peace.
I'll say this.